Hey guys, and welcome back to Miss Blackberry Speaks. This is Miss Blackberry. You guys, the last time we talked about the art of letting go. Well, guess what? This episode is entitled It's Time to Pick Up the Pieces. You heard me right. It is now time to pick up the pieces from letting go of unwanted things. All right, guys. So when I talk about picking up the pieces, I'm talking about picking up my feelings, picking up everything that was literally on the ground for me and trying to move on. You guys, ever since my oldest ran away from home and started staying on her own, it was time for me to pick up the pieces. I had to let it go and move on. And ever since she left, you guys, I've been doing just that. I'm no longer really sick. I no longer have high blood pressure. Yes, I'm still on insulin 6 times a day, but that's because I have to be because of all the steroids that I take. But I do not let anything or anyone put me in a headspace where I cannot function anymore. Before I let anyone put me in a headspace like that ever again, I will drop everything and let it go. Move on with no problems. That's who I became. That's who I become. People make me that way and I stay that way sometimes, but I am learning to let go with ease. I am learning to move on without judgment. And even if someone do judge me for moving on in the way that I do, I care less about it now than I did before. So after moving on, you guys, I decided to go along with my YouTube program that I was doing with the cooking and the vlog for therapeutic purposes. And you guys, I must say that it has been helping me out a whole lot. Why? Because I learned to be more vulnerable. I am learning to talk to people more. Communication is very high right now because at one point I struggled with trying to communicate with people, trying to communicate my feelings, putting my feelings out there. Yeah, it has been a mess. You know, when it was my time down in the dumps, it was a mess. But now that I am out of the dumps, you guys, I am now traveling. I am now going places that I never thought I would go. Even though I'm still a little hurt that I can't go to work, you guys, I make the best out of everything. A chick always got a side hustle, but we'll get into that a little later. When it time when it came time for me to just move on, you guys, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was hard at first. I still had my breakdowns, wondering why this happened to me. Why did this happen to me while I was sick? Why did things go this way? I was literally the parent that would go to work overtime just so my kids can have what they want. And I'm thinking, like, sheesh, I go to work, I try to get them everything that they're asking for, try to get them everything they need, everything they want. But yet I'm dealing with issues like this. Y'all, that stayed in my head for a long period of time. Not only am I stressed about that, I'm stressed about not working, I'm stressed about being sick. So I had to find some way to get over it. YouTube was my out. Not only was YouTube was my out, you guys, I went and I saw a therapist. And you guys, it's okay to see one. I know in the black community sometimes when you talk about going to see a therapist, oh my God, that's a signal, a sign, a something that you're crazy. That's not always the case. I went and I sought out a therapist for myself, someone that I could vent to without being judged. I sought out somebody to talk to so that I could relay my feelings when there's no one else around. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to vent. Now, when you become angry and start hitting on folk and start abusing folk, then that's not okay. But it is okay. And I really, really want the Black community to know that it is okay to talk to somebody. You're not crazy every time you have to see a therapist. You're really not. And while I was seeing my therapist, I saw her 3 times a week. I literally had to at that point because I was holding so much in. By the time I would let it go, it was about to be a real explosion. Okay? A real explosion. So, saw her 3 times a week. She let me vent. She let me do whatever I wanted to in her office. She made me feel comfortable enough to tell her my story without being judged. And y'all, that is a beautiful thing. When you can tell your story and not be judged about what's going on in your life, that is an amazing feeling. Anyway, please, y'all, if you're in a Black family, get used to going to see a therapist. It helps. So now I'm going to therapy, having my little fun on the side or whatever, cooking, baking, all kinds of stuff. Y'all, everything that I was going through has started to become just a memory. Why? Because I picked up the pieces and I was moving on. I stopped going to church for a while because I was just so under so much stress and being judged for what I was going through that I stopped going to church. They didn't want to hear nothing that a Christian had to say to me. Not one thing. Until I came to the realization that I need to be thankful for what I have, which is my life. Because when I say I have folks bombarding heaven for me, they bombarded heaven. It was almost like the guy off of Bruce Almighty. When he heard everybody praying in his ear, you guys, I could hear it, like literally hear people praying for me. So I was like, you know what? Let me go back to church. Let me find a church that I'm really interested in and let me go there. Y'all, about 2 months later, I'm still at home chilling and stuff. One of my hometown friends invited me to his church. So I said, okay, I'll give it a chance. Mind you, I'm still dragging around an oxygen tank, but by that time, I could get around a lot better than what I was used to. I was still wearing the high top shoes, you guys, for ankle support so that I could stand. But I was getting up and down the stairs with little to no problem. And like I mentioned before, my 2 babies are my biggest cheerleaders. They would push me up the steps. They would say, come on, mommy, you can do it. They would help me out. Y'all, listen, they helped me out to where I am today. A person that can no longer walk with a stick if I don't have to. Okay? So, that being said, I'm still dragging around my little tank. So I decided to go and visit this church. Not to mention, this church was only a mile away from my house at the time and didn't know it. Okay? So I went to that church and you guys fell in freaking love with this church. They were so welcoming and they welcomed you in and had no judgment, which is weird for me because in my mind, okay, in my mind, there are a lot of judgmental church people. We are going to get into that right after this. Y'all stay tuned to Miss Blackberry Speaks because she got a lot to say